All right, hola, my name is Beth Vanos and I'm here with Laurel Springs School. Hoy vamos a hablar de la gramática, grab and go. We're going to talk about some different meanings that some verbs have, the difference between volver and devolver in particular. And then we're going to expand that into envolver, desenvolver, simply because they're right there, part of that a little bit. We're also going to talk about the difference between mirar and ver. This is an introduction to this. So welcome. The mission statement of Laurel Springs is to engage global learners in an education that values them as individuals, integrates their passions and pursuits into academic and career pathways, and fosters growth, inquiry growth, mastery, purpose, and independence. So today what we're going to work on and learn is the use of different verbs that can be sometimes confusing and feel like they should mean the same thing. So for example, volver versus devolver, and then we're going to expand that into envolver versus desenvolver. We're also going to talk a little bit about the verbs mirar and ver, and we'll use a few examples with that. So volver significa to return. A person returns, such as a person returns home after school. Devolver is objects are returned. So as a person, you don't say yo devuelvo a casa. We'll talk about that. And then we'll just get into envolver, which is to wrap. Notice it's got the prefix en, and desenvolver, which has got two prefixes, which means to unwrap. So let's talk about those verbs first. Volver, you're returning home, let's say. You're a person. The dog returns back home, or something like that. So you say, yo vuelvo a casa a las 6 después de la escuela. Or mi perro devuelve a casa después de caminar en el vecindario. You can use this in the preterite tense. My grandfather returned to our hometown, right? Mi abuelo devolvió a mi ciudad ayer. But notice these are people or pets. They are animate objects. Devolver refers to objects that are returned. The phone is returned because it doesn't work. The video, the whatever is returned after you rent it. Or the shirt, in this case, you can look at the image here. Some kind of clothing item is returned for some reason. So el hombre devuelve la camisa porque no sirve, right? Or yo devuelvo la leche que no sabe bien. I return the milk. The milk is an object. So therefore, we use devolver for objects and volver for people. That's the main message here. They might be confusing. You might say, why can't I use regresar? You can. You can say, yo regreso a casa. Usually regresar also is used for people, as opposed to objects getting returned. Desenvolver and desenvolver are just extensions of the verb volver. So we put a prefix, envolver, to wrap something up. This is not like a big mystery word. Desenvolver has two prefixes, des and en, un, to wrap, right? So, volver here means to return, but in this case, it means something completely different. It doesn't mean to return an object to the store or to the post office or something. So we're unwrapping. Desenvolver. Envolver can also mean like to wrap up your injured arm and in bandages and so on from the hospital. So these are also stem changing verbs. If you know how to do volver, you can do envolver, desenvolver, and so on. But they mean different things than the verb volver suggests. So here's two other verbs that sometimes get confused in Spanish. As a non-native Spanish speaker, these take some practice and you notice these things. So when do you use ver? When do you use mirar? They both mean to see, to watch, to look at, to view, right? You're viewing something. Anyway, they can be confusing. Some people say, well, look at mirar is more of a focused action, like I intently watch the news. Yo miré las noticias, versus I just generally watch the news. It's just something I do. Yo veo las noticias todas las noches. I feel like it's more helpful to look at some context. And so I'm going to move this around a little bit. So if you look on the left-hand side, mirar is more like you're looking at an object. You're looking at the device. It's more intentional. So you say, I'm looking at the phone. The phone is, new or whatever it is, right? You're defining the phone and so on. You're explaining it. So yo miro la televisión. The TV could be the object too. Or it's used oftentimes in the word look. So as a non-native speaker, this is how I kind of figured this one out, is I say, if it's look at this thing, mira. Almost always as a command, you say, mira hacia arriba, look above or look up. Look at what's happening. Look at the hot air balloons or something, right? Mira las fotos. Look at the photos here that I have. They're so amazing, or whatever. Mira esto, ¿te gusta? Do you like this one? So it directs your attention. Mira mis zapatos nuevos. Look at my new shoes. Ver is more like to see something. So this is how I, as a non-native speaker, sort of distinguish. Mirar is more like to look. Ver is more like to see. So I didn't see you last night at the movies, right? No te vi anoche en la película, en el cine. Or I want to see the movie. Yo quiero ver la película. ¿Tú quieres ver la película? Vamos a ver lo que pasa. We're going to see what happens in the movie. Vi, I saw a tu novio. We're going to get the letter A in a minute. But right now, the verb ver is I saw your boyfriend in the park yesterday. Sometimes there are expressions with the verb ver. ¿Cómo me veo? How do I look? Nos vemos. Also an expression to say goodbye to someone. Nos vemos mañana. ¿Está bien? Sí. Nos vemos. Nos veremos. We will see each other. Sometimes you can use this in the future tense. Doesn't always have to be in the present. Here's the preterite tense, for example. So ver has more expressions, and it's more like to see, versus mirar is more like to look. That's my take on how I have figured this out. Again, this is a very introductory level. And as you are getting into Spanish, start noticing and paying attention to examples that you see and you hear. Last but not least, there are some verbs, ver, mirar, buscar, which is not part of this lesson. Encontrar, there are other words that use the letter a after it if the next word is referring to a person or an animate object like a pet or a dog or, whatever. So notice it says, yo miro a todos los perros en el parque versus yo miré unas cosas interesantes. Cosas interesantes are objects. People, dogs, they have a beating heart. Then we put, I see two, the dogs. That does not translate word for word. It translates idea for idea, and we don't use that in that way in English. So it can be a little bit confusing. So we do it with ver. Yo veo a mis amigos. Versus, so there's a person. So the a is in there. No veo nada. I see nothing. Versus yo no veo a nada. You don't say the a. Buscar, which is the verb to look for. The for is part of this verb. But here also, we don't only use it with mirar and ver. We use the a personal. And it is used after a verb, but before the direct object of the person or the pet or something. So yo busco a mi novio. I look to my boyfriend. I look at. So you might say, oh, great. Now I know that it means to or at, but it doesn't always translate that way. So if after certain verbs, buscar, mirar, ver, then the letter a is used if your next word is a person or pet. If it is not a person or a pet, you don't use it. Yo no veo nada. Yo miré unas cosas. Yo busco un suéter. Sweater is an inanimate object. So therefore, we do not use the letter a. So again, this construct takes some time and practice. So start noticing with this one. And remember that it's not always word for word in Spanish to English and vice versa. That is the presentation on some words, some meanings of words that get confusing, and also a little quick thing about the letter a after some verbs. Hopefully this is helpful. Let us know if you have any questions, anyone in the World Languages Department at Laurel Springs School. Thanks for listening. Gracias.